Lance. "Help us survive," she said, and change the rancher's fate forever. Jake Morgan wiped the sweat from his forehead as he checked the fence line on his ranch outside Tucson. The desert sun beat down mercilessly, but something felt wrong. Lance. The air crackled with energy that made his teeth ache. His horse, Dakota, stamped nervously and refused to move forward. Lance. Then the sky split open. A massive ship materialized above the valley, its hull scarred and burning. Lance. Jake had seen plenty of strange things in his 40 years, but nothing like this. The craft was easily a mile long, dark metal etched with symbols that hurt to look at. Lance. Smaller vessels broke away from it, streaking across the sky like falling stars. Most headed east, but one spiraled downward, trailing black smoke directly toward his property. Lance. Jake kicked Dakota into a gallop, racing toward the crash site. The vessel hit hard in the north pasture, carving a trench through the red earth. Lance. By the time he arrived, the ship's side had already opened. 3 figures stumbled out, and Jake's hand instinctively moved to the rifle on his saddle. Lance. They looked human enough. 2 men and a woman, all wearing form-fitting suits that shimmered like oil on water. Lance. But their eyes were wrong, pupils too large, irises that shifted colors. The woman collapsed first, blood seeping from a wound in her side. Lance. The taller man caught her, while the other scanned the horizon with a device that blinked urgent red. Jake dismounted slowly, rifle ready, but not aimed. Lance. The woman's eyes locked onto his, and she spoke. Her voice bypassed his ears entirely, resonating directly in his skull. Lance. Help us survive? The shorter man raised his hands, showing they were empty. Lance. He spoke aloud this time, his accent strange but understandable. Pursuit craft. Lance. Coming fast. We need shelter. Lance. 30 seconds. Jake had a split second to decide. Lance. These could be invaders, criminals, anything. Lance. But the woman's plea echoed in his mind, and something in her desperate gaze reminded him of his daughter before the cancer took her. That same fierce will to live. Lance. Barn now. He pointed toward the structure half a mile away. Lance. The men lifted the woman between them and ran with inhuman speed. Jake mounted Dakota and followed, hearing the high-pitched whine of approaching ships. Lance. They made it inside with seconds to spare. Jake killed the lights and pulled the heavy doors shut just as 3 sleek fighters screamed overhead, their searchlights cutting through the gathering dusk. Lance. The woman had passed out. The 2 men worked frantically over her with tools that glowed and hummed. Lance. The taller one looked at Jake. They will search every structure. Lance. They will kill anyone who helped us. You should have left us to die. Lance. Jake chambered a round in his rifle. Well, I didn't, so now we figure out how to survive together. Lance. The ships circled back, and the barn's walls rattled with their passing. Jake's decision in those crucial seconds had just entangled his fate with forces beyond Earth, beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. Lance. The woman had asked for help, and he had given it. Now there was no turning back. Lance. The hunters had arrived, and his quiet ranch had become a battleground in a war he didn't understand. The shorter man activated a holographic display showing dozens of red dots converging on their position. Lance. They know we are here. They always know. Lance. Outside, something heavy landed in the yard, and alien voices began to echo in the night. The ships overhead suddenly pulled back, regrouping in a formation that spelled out a single message to anyone watching from below. They were not leaving until they recovered what they had come for, and they would burn everything to ash to get it. Jake checked his ammunition. Lance, 6 bullets against an alien armada. He almost laughed at the absurdity. Lance. But the woman's words still echoed in his mind, and he realized that sometimes survival meant standing your ground, even when the odds were impossible. The taller man noticed Jake's weapon and shook his head. Lance. Projectile weapons will not harm their armor. Maybe not, Jake replied, but I know this land better than they do, and I've got something they don't. Lance. What is that? The man asked. Home field advantage and spite. Lance. Now tell me what you are running from, and why they want you dead so badly. The woman's eyes fluttered open. Lance. She gripped Jake's wrist with surprising strength, and again her voice filled his head. We carry information that will end their empire. Lance. They call themselves the Sovereignty. They have conquered 800 worlds. Lance. They believe humans are next. Jake felt his blood run cold. Lance. How long do we have? Their main fleet arrives in 72 hours, she whispered. Unless someone warns Earth first. The barn door exploded inward and 3 armored figures stepped through the smoke. Lance. Each stood 7 feet tall, their weapons crackling with violet energy. The leader's voice boomed through a translator. Lance. Surrender the defectors, human. Your world is not yet ready for conflict with the Sovereignty. Lance. Give them to us, and you will be spared. Jake raised his rifle, knowing it was useless but unable to simply give up. Lance. This is my land. You want them, you go through me. The alien tilted its head, as if amused. Lance. Primitive honor. How quaint. Lance. Very well, human. Die for strangers if you must. Lance. The weapon charged, light building at its core. Jake prepared for the end. Lance. But the woman raised her hand, and a shield of blue energy erupted between them and their attackers. The alien's blast scattered harmlessly against it. Lance. Run, she commanded Jake. There is a communications array 20 miles north. Lance. You must reach it. You must send the warning. Lance. I am not leaving you here, Jake insisted. Lance. She smiled sadly. You already saved us once. Lance. Now save your world. The 2 men grabbed Jake and pulled him toward the back of the barn. Lance. Behind them, the woman stood alone, her shield flickering as more Sovereignty soldiers poured through the entrance. Her voice echoed one final time in Jake's mind. Lance. Tell them we tried. Tell them humans should fight. Tell them the Sovereignty can be beaten. Then the barn erupted in light and fire, and Jake was running through the desert night with 2 aliens at his side, carrying the weight of Earth's future on his shoulders. Lance. The woman's sacrifice bought them minutes at most. The Sovereignty ships wheeled overhead, searching, hunting. Lance. Jake had wanted a quiet life after losing his family. He had wanted peace. Instead, he got war dropped literally into his backyard. But as he ran, he felt something he had not felt in years since his daughter died. Lance. Purpose. The woman had asked for help, and her final request was to save billions of lives. Lance. Jake Morgan had been a rancher, a father, a man broken by loss. Now he was something else entirely. Lance. He was humanity's first soldier in a war they did not even know had begun. and he would make damn sure the sovereignty regretted ever coming to his planet, Lance. The communications array lay ahead, a tower rising against the stars. Between him and it stood an army that had crushed entire civilizations, Lance. Jake checked his rifle one more time, then looked at his two alien companions. "All right," he said. "Lance, let's go change some fate." The taller man nodded grimly. The woman's name was Lisa, Lance. She was our commander. She believed humans could be allies, Lance. "Then let's prove her right," Jake replied, and they plunged forward into the darkness, racing against time and impossible odds. The sovereignty had made their first mistake when they underestimated a grieving rancher who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Lance. It would not be their last mistake, but it would be the one that cost them everything. Because humanity, Jake was about to teach them, did not surrender. Lance. Not on their own soil. Not ever. Lance. The tower's lights appeared on the horizon. Behind them, the desert erupted with enemy forces. Lance. The real battle was about to begin, and Jake Morgan was done running. It was time to make his stand. Lance. Jake and the two aliens, who finally introduced themselves as Peter and Carl, reached the base of the communications tower as dawn broke across the desert. The structure stretched 300 feet into the air, a relic from an old military installation. Lance. Jake had explored it as a kid, knew its maintenance shafts and hidden passages. That knowledge might be the only advantage they had. "How long to send your message?" Jake asked, catching his breath. Peter pulled out a data chip that glowed with inner light. Lance. 90 seconds if we reach the transmitter. But the sovereignty will detect the broadcast immediately. Lance. They will throw everything at this position. Carl scanned the area with his device. Lance. 47 hostiles advancing from the south. More coming from orbit. Lance. We have perhaps 8 minutes before they surround us. Jake studied the tower's base, finding the old maintenance hatch exactly where he remembered. This leads up through the interior. Lance. They will expect us to use the stairs or the elevator. We go up through here, send the message, then what? Then we hope your military responds before the main fleet arrives, Peter said quietly. Lisa calculated a 37% chance of success. "Better than zero," Jake replied, forcing the hatch open. The tunnel inside was narrow and dark, barely wide enough for one person. Lance. They climbed single file, Jake leading the way. His hands found holds from muscle memory, even after 30 years. Lance. Behind him, the aliens moved with fluid grace despite their size. Lance. Halfway up, an explosion rocked the tower. The sovereignty had begun their assault. Lance. Metal screamed and groaned around them. Dust rained down, coating them in grit. Lance. "Keep moving," Jake urged. They climbed faster, hands and feet finding purchase on rungs slick with age and rust. Lance. Another explosion hit closer, and a section of the shaft collapsed below them, cutting off their escape route. There was only up now, only forward. Lance. They emerged onto the platform that housed the main transmitter. It was a tangle of old cables and newer satellite equipment, overlooked and forgotten by most. Lance. But to Peter, it was exactly what they needed. "This will work," he said, connecting the data chip to the system. Lance. Primitive but functional. Very human. Jake moved to the edge of the platform, looking down at the gathering forces below. Lance. At least 60 soldiers now, all armored and armed with weapons that could probably level the entire tower. Their ships hovered in a perimeter, blocking any escape. Lance. They were patient, methodical, certain of their victory. "How long?" Jake called back. Lance. 60 seconds to establish connection, then 30 to transmit. Not enough time. Lance. Jake knew it in his bones. The sovereignty would hit them before the message completed. Lance. He needed to buy Peter those 90 seconds, needed to keep their attention divided. Carl joined him at the edge, studying the enemy formation. "Lance, you are thinking of a diversion. More like a last stand," Jake admitted. "I have got 6 bullets, a knife, and a lot of anger." "Lance, not much, but maybe enough to keep them busy while you two finish the job." "That is suicide," Carl said flatly. "Lance. Yeah, well, I have been dead inside since my daughter passed. At least this way I die for something that matters." "Lance." Jake started toward the stairs leading down to the main platform. Carl grabbed his shoulder. "Lance, wait. Lisa would not want this, Lance. She saved you because she saw something in your species worth preserving. And I am preserving it, Lance, by making sure that message gets sent." Jake shook off the alien's hand. "Tell Peter to make it count." He descended the stairs, rifle ready, counting each step. The platform below was open to the air, exposed from all sides. No cover, no protection. Lance. Just Jake Morgan against an empire. He almost laughed at the lunacy of it. Lance. The sovereignty soldiers noticed him immediately. Their weapons tracked his movement, but they held fire. Lance. The same leader from the barn stepped forward, its armor gleaming in the morning sun. "Surrender, human." "Lance. You fought well, but this is finished. Your alien friends cannot send their message before we destroy that transmitter." "Lance. Your death changes nothing." Jake chambered around. "Lance. Maybe. But I am betting you want to take them alive." "Lance. That data chip must be pretty important if you chase them all the way here. You start shooting, risk hitting the equipment. Maybe they trigger some self-destruct." "Lance. All that effort for nothing." The alien paused, and Jake knew he had guessed right. "You are more perceptive than expected, Lance." "Very well. Come down, Lance. Surrender peacefully, and we will spare your life. You have our word, Lance." "Your word means nothing to me," Jake replied. "How about this instead? Lance, your best fighter against me. Hand to hand. Lance, I win. You back off for 5 minutes. You win. I tell my friends to surrender." Fair deal for warriors, right? The alien consulted with its companions. Jake knew they would accept. Lance. Arrogance was universal, apparently. These beings had conquered hundreds of worlds. Lance. They could not imagine losing to a simple human rancher. "Agreed," the leader finally said. "Lance. But when you lose, and you will lose, your friends will surrender immediately. Deal." Jake descended the rest of the way, setting his rifle aside. The circle of soldiers parted, and a massive warrior stepped forward. Lance. It stood a full 8 feet tall, muscles evident even beneath the armor. It removed its helmet, revealing a face that was almost human except for the metallic sheen to its skin and eyes that glowed amber. Lance. "I am called Vex," it said. "I have fought on 30 worlds. Lance. I have never been defeated in single combat. You are brave but foolish, human, Lance." Jake rolled his shoulders, feeling every one of his 40 years. "Name is Jake, and I am not here to win. Lance, I am here to buy time." Vex moved first, faster than Jake expected. Lands. A fist like a sledgehammer caught him in the ribs, lifting him off his feet and sending him crashing to the platform's metal floor. Pain exploded through his chest. Lance. Definitely cracked ribs. Jake forced himself up, spitting blood. Lance. Vex watched with something like pity. Surrender. Lance. This is pointless. Not yet, it ain't. Jake charged, ducking under the next swing and driving his knee into Vex's midsection. It was like hitting concrete. The alien barely flinched. Lance. But Jake was not done. He grabbed Vex's arm, used the momentum to swing himself around, and slammed his elbow into the back of the alien's knee joint. Lance. Vex stumbled, surprise crossing its face. Jake pressed the advantage, raining blows on any vulnerable point he could find. Lance. None of them did real damage, but they were not supposed to. They just needed to keep Vex engaged, keep the focus on him and not on the transmitter above. Lance. 30 seconds down. 60 to go. Lance. Vex recovered and backhanded Jake across the platform. Stars exploded in his vision. His jaw felt like it might be broken. But he got back up. Lance always got back up. You cannot win, Vex stated, but there was respect in its voice now. Lance, don't need to win, just need to last. Lance. Jake wiped blood from his mouth and raised his fists again. They circled each other. Lance. Vex attacked with precise, deadly strikes. Lance. Jake dodged when he could, blocked when he could not dodge, took hits that would have killed most men. His body screamed in protest. Lance. Every breath felt like knives, but the seconds ticked away. Lance. 45 seconds down. 45 to go. Lance. A particularly vicious combination sent Jake to his knees. Blood dripped from cuts across his face. Lance. His left eye was swelling shut. Vex loomed over him, ready to end it. Lance. You have courage, human. That is worth something. Jake looked up at the tower above them. Through his blurred vision, he could just make out Peter still working frantically. Not done yet. Lance. Not enough time. Worth everything, Jake gasped. He surged upward, headbutting Vex with every ounce of strength he had left. The alien reeled back, more from surprise than damage. Lance. Jake followed with a wild haymaker that connected with Vex's jaw. His hand exploded in pain. Lance. Probably broken. But Vex actually went down, sprawling on the platform. Lance. The watching soldiers tensed, weapons rising. Deal was hand to hand, Jake reminded them, his voice thick. Lance. Honor means something, right? Or is that just talk? The soldiers lowered their weapons. Lance. Vex rose, a thin line of dark blood trickling from its lip. It stared at Jake with something approaching awe. Lance. You actually hurt me. A human. Lance. How? Desperation and spite. Family recipe. Jake swayed on his feet, his vision darkening at the edges. Lance. We done yet? Or do we keep dancing? 60 seconds down. 30 to go. Vex came at him again, and this time there was no holding back. Lance. A strike to Jake's stomach doubled him over. A knee to his face sent him sprawling. Lance. His body refused to respond anymore. He had nothing left. Lance. But the timer in his head kept counting. 25 seconds. Lance. 20. 15. Lance. Stay down. Vex urged. "You have proven yourself, Lance. Do not throw your life away." Jake tried to stand. Lance. His legs would not hold him. Lance. He collapsed back to the metal deck, tasting copper and failure. He had bought them time, but not enough. Lance. The sovereignty would realize soon, would check on the transmitter, would stop the broadcast before it completed. Above them, a brilliant blue light erupted from the tower's peak. Lance. The transmitter array lit up like a star, and a pulse of energy shot into the sky, punching through the atmosphere and out into space. Peter appeared at the railing, the spent data chip crumbling to dust in his hand. Lance. "Message sent," he called down. "Earth has been warned." Lance. The sovereignty's intelligence about their fleet, their weaknesses, their war crimes, all of it is now in your government's hands. Lance. The sovereignty leader roared in fury. "Destroy them all! Destroy the tower!" Lance. "Destroy everything." But before the soldiers could fire, the sky erupted with streaks of light. Human fighter jets screamed overhead, their missiles finding targets among the sovereignty ships. Lance. Ground forces emerged from the desert. Military vehicles racing toward the tower. Someone had been closer than anyone expected, had received the message and responded instantly. Lance. The battle erupted in chaos. Sovereignty soldiers scattered, returning fire. Lance. But they were caught off guard, trapped between the tower and the advancing human forces. Jake watched it all from the platform, his broken body finally giving out. Lance. He collapsed fully, his vision fading. Vex knelt beside him, no longer an enemy but something else. Lance, you won, human. You bought the time you needed. Lance. Your species will remember what you did here. Don't care about remembering, Jake whispered. Lance. Just care that they survive, that someone fights back. Vex lifted Jake carefully, surprisingly gentle. Lance. I will ensure you survive to see what your sacrifice has built. The sovereignty may have conquered 800 worlds, but today we learned something. Lance. Humans do not surrender, even against impossible odds. Lance. That knowledge will spread. It will inspire resistance across our empire. Lance. Good, Jake managed. About time someone stood up to bullies. Peter and Carl made it down from the tower as human soldiers secured the area. Lance. Military medics rushed to Jake, their equipment already working to stabilize him. Through the haze of pain and exhaustion, he saw helicopters landing, officers shouting orders, the machinery of Earth's defense springing to life. Lance. Is the message enough? Jake asked Peter. Can they fight the sovereignty? The data contains everything, Peter assured him. Lance. Fleet positions, command structures, technological specifications, and most importantly, evidence of their crimes, proof that will unite your world like nothing else could. Lance. They attacked neutral refugees. They pursued into your territory without permission. Lance. They threatened a human civilian. Your species now has justification and information. Lance. Jake closed his eyes, letting the medics do their work. He thought of Lisa, her final sacrifice. Lance. He thought of his daughter, lost to disease. He thought of the woman's voice in his head, asking for help. Lance. He had given it, and in return she had given Earth a fighting chance. The rancher who wanted only peace had become the catalyst for war. Lance. But sometimes Jake realized the greatest act of peace was standing ready to fight for it. As they loaded him onto a helicopter, Jake looked back at the tower. Lance. Scorch marks and bullet holes covered its surface, but it still stood. Like him, battered but unbroken. Lance. The sovereignty had come to his world expecting easy prey. Instead, they found humans. Lance. And humans, Jake knew, were a lot harder to kill than they looked. The helicopter lifted off, carrying him toward treatment and debriefing, and a future he could not yet imagine. Lance. But one thing was certain. The sovereignty's 72-hour deadline was now meaningless. Lance. Earth was warned, armed with intelligence, and ready to fight. All because a rancher chose to help 3 strangers, and a woman's desperate plea had changed his fate. Lance. Sometimes survival meant standing alone against an empire, and sometimes that stand was exactly what the universe needed to see. Lance. Jake Morgan had wanted to die protecting something that mattered. Instead, he lived to see humanity take its first real steps toward the stars. Lance. And it all started with 3 simple words. Help us survive. 3 weeks later, Jake sat in a secure military facility deep beneath Colorado. Lance. His body was healing, accelerated by alien medical technology that Peter and Carl had shared. Broken bones mended in days instead of months. Lance. The cuts and bruises faded like morning mist. Even his hand, shattered from punching Vex, regained full function. Lance. But the physical healing was nothing compared to what was happening to Earth. General Helen Foster briefed him daily on the situation. Lance. The Sovereignty's main fleet had arrived right on schedule, 72 hours after the tower incident. They found Earth's forces waiting, deployed with precision thanks to the intelligence Peter had transmitted. The aliens expected confusion and panic. Instead, they faced a united front. Lance. We have not won, Helen explained, pulling up holographic displays showing fleet positions. But we have not lost either. Lance. Every engagement so far has been a stalemate. The Sovereignty is cautious now, uncertain. They are not used to resistance. Jake studied the maps, still trying to wrap his mind around it all. Lance. Ships in orbit. Battles in space. Lance. His simple ranch life felt like a distant memory. What about casualties? Lower than projected. Lance. Your intelligence let us evacuate population centers before the first attacks. Millions of lives saved, Jake. Lance. All because you gave Peter those 90 seconds. It did not feel real. Lance. Jake had just done what seemed right, helping people who needed help. Now politicians called him a hero. Military strategists studied his actions. And somewhere out there the Sovereignty fleet considered him a priority target. Lance. They want me dead, Jake said. It was not a question. Lance. Helen nodded. You humiliated them. Lance. Beat their champion in single combat, delayed them long enough to ruin their surprise attack. Vex has apparently been demoted for losing to a, quote, primitive native. Lance. The Sovereignty does not forgive embarrassment. Where is Vex now? Prisoner of war facility. Lance. Same place we are keeping the other survivors from the tower battle. Peter and Carl visit him regularly, actually. Lance. Apparently, losing to you changed something in him. That caught Jake's interest. Lance. Changed how? Helen pulled up another screen showing footage of Vex in an interrogation room. But he was not being interrogated. He was talking freely, explaining Sovereignty tactics and weaknesses with the detail of someone who had turned traitor to his own people. He says if humans could stand against the Sovereignty with primitive technology and determination, then the Empire is not as invincible as they claim. Lance. He wants to help us win. More importantly, he is spreading word through their ranks. Lance. We have intercepted communications showing increased desertion rates among sovereignty forces. Your fight inspired them, Jake. Lance. Jake watched Vex on the screen. The massive warrior looks smaller now, or maybe just different. Lance. Like a weight had lifted. Can we trust him? Peter and Carl vouch for him. Lance. They say losing to you with honor was more meaningful than winning 100 battles with tyranny. I am choosing to believe them. Lance. The door opened and Peter entered, followed by Carl. Both had been granted asylum and were working as consultants with Earth's defense forces. Lance. They had saved countless lives with their knowledge of sovereignty tactics. Lance. Jake, Peter greeted him warmly. Good to see you up and walking. Lance. How are the ribs? Better than Vex's pride, apparently. Jake gestured at the screen. Helen says he is helping us now. Carl nodded. Lance. Vex was conscripted. Most sovereignty soldiers are. Lance. They are given a choice. Serve or watch their families die. Vex saw in you what we saw in Lisa. Lance. The willingness to sacrifice everything for what is right. It broke something in him. Or maybe fixed something. Lance. Hard to say. The sovereignty is built on fear, Peter added. Lance. Fear of punishment, fear of extinction. But you showed Vex something they thought extinct in the universe. Lance. True courage without the threat of consequences driving it. You help strangers knowing it could cost you everything. Lance. That act is spreading through their forces like a virus. A good virus, Carl clarified, seeing Jake's expression. Ants. More and more soldiers are questioning their orders. Some have surrendered. Lance. Others are sabotaging operations from within. The Empire is starting to fracture. Lance. Helen pulled up a galaxy map. Red zones showing sovereignty territory. Several sections now blinked yellow. Lance. 18 worlds have reported uprisings in the last week, all of them citing Earth's resistance as inspiration. The sovereignty claimed humans were too primitive to matter. Now we are the spark that might burn down their empire. Lance. Jake felt overwhelmed. I just wanted to help some people. I did not sign up to start a revolution. Lance. No one ever does, Helen replied, but here we are. Lance, the question is, what happens next? Peter and Carl exchanged glances. Finally, Peter spoke. Lance, the sovereignty will escalate. They have to. Lance, if they let Earth's rebellion stand, their entire power structure collapses. They will bring more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. Lance. Eventually, they will resort to orbital bombardment. Glassing the planet, Carl said grimly. Lance. Burning the surface until nothing lives. Lance. They have done it before to worlds that resisted too effectively. The room fell silent. Lance. Jake thought of his ranch, the red desert, the wide sky, all of it reduced to ash and glass. Lance, can we stop that? Maybe, Helen said, but not alone. Lance, we need allies, other species that have suffered under sovereignty rule. Lance, we need to turn this from Earth's fight into a galactic rebellion. That is why we asked to meet with you today, Peter said. Lance, we have a plan, but it requires someone the galaxy will listen to. Someone who has already proven they can stand against the sovereignty and win. Jake saw where this was going. Glance. You want me to what? Give speeches? Glance. I am a rancher, not a diplomat. You are the man who beat Vex in single combat, Carl countered. The human who helped refugees without hesitation. The warrior who bought Earth time to prepare. Lance, your story is spreading across hundreds of worlds. People need to see you, hear you, know that resistance is possible. Lance, we have a ship, Peter continued. Fast, well-armed, equipped with jump drives. Lance, we can visit systems on the edge of sovereignty control. Places where the population is ready to rebel but lacks the courage. Lance, your presence, your testimony could tip the balance. Lance, what does the military think? Officially, we cannot spare you. Unofficially, we cannot afford not to try. Lance, Earth needs time to build defenses, and we need the sovereignty distracted. Rebellions across their territory would do that. Lance, but Jake, this is dangerous. More dangerous than the tower. Lance, you would be going deep into enemy space. Who else would come? Me and Carl, Peter said immediately. Lance, we know the territory. And Vex has volunteered as well. Lance, he says he owes you a debt. Vex? Lance, the guy who nearly killed me? The guy you showed a better path, Carl corrected. He is committed to our cause now, Lance, and his knowledge of sovereignty security will be invaluable, Lance. Jake walked to the window, looking out at the mountain vista. 3 weeks ago, he was checking fence lines. Lance. Now they wanted him to fly across the galaxy starting revolutions. It was insane, Lance. It was impossible. It was exactly what Lisa had died for. Lance. When do we leave? He asked. Helen smiled. Lance, I was hoping you would say that. The ship is ready. Lance. We have identified 5 systems where uprisings are most likely. Hit them right, and we could tie up sovereignty forces for months. Lance. Hit them wrong, and you will be captured or killed. What is the ship called? Frontier, Peter replied. Lance. We named it after you. Humans are from Earth, but you showed us you are also from the frontier. Lance. The edge where civilization meets wilderness, where people carve out lives against impossible odds. That is what the rebellion needs to be. Lance, a frontier spirit against an empire. Jake turned back to them. Lance, all right, but I want something in return. Lance, I want to visit my ranch before we go. One last time, just in case. Lance. Done, Helen agreed. We will have a transport ready in the morning. That night, Jake lay in his quarters thinking about the path ahead. Lance. He had lost his daughter, lost his wife to grief, lost himself to routine and emptiness. Then 3 strangers fell from the sky and suddenly his life had purpose again. Lance. It was a strange kind of grace, he thought. Born from desperation and watered with blood, but grace nonetheless. Lance. Lisa had asked him to survive, to warn his world. He had done that. Lance. Now he was being asked to do more, to become a symbol, a rallying point for an entire galaxy of oppressed peoples. Lance. It should have been someone else, someone trained, educated, prepared. Lance. But it was him, Jake Morgan, rancher and reluctant warrior. Lance, the man who helped strangers and changed fate forever. The next morning they flew him to his ranch. Lance. The landscape looked different from the air. Scorch marks from the battle still scarred the earth. Lance. His barn was gone, destroyed in the fighting. But the house stood, battered, but intact. The fence line he had been checking when this all started still needed repair. Jake walked his property one last time, memorizing every detail. Glance. His boots kicked up red dust that painted the air gold in the morning light. Dakota grazed in the North Pasture, unconcerned with galactic politics or alien empires. Glance. Just a horse, living a horse's life. Jake envied that simplicity. Glance. Peter found him at sunset, standing where the barn used to be. "This is what you are fighting for," the alien said quietly. Glance. "Places like this, simple lives lived with dignity. The sovereignty would take even this from your species." "They already did," Jake replied, gesturing at the ruins. Glance. "But I get your point. This needs to be here when I get back." Glance. "If I get back, you will." Glance. "I have seen you fight impossible odds. You are very difficult to kill, Jake Morgan." Glance. They returned to the transport as stars began appearing overhead. Somewhere up there, the frontier waited. Glance. And beyond it, worlds that needed to hear that resistance was possible, that an empire could bleed. Glance. The transport lifted off, and Jake watched his ranch shrink below him. Everything he knew, everything familiar, falling away. Glance. Ahead lay the unknown. Alien worlds, strange peoples, battles beyond anything he could imagine. Glance. But he was not alone. Peter and Carl would be there. Glance. Even Vex, his former enemy turned unlikely ally. Together, they would carry Earth's message to the galaxy. Glance. "Help us survive," Lisa had said. And Jake had helped. Glance. Now he would do more. He would teach the galaxy that survival was not enough. Glance. That sometimes you had to fight. That even against impossible odds, even facing an empire that had crushed 800 worlds, resistance mattered. Glance. The transport docked with a larger ship in orbit. Through the viewport, Jake saw Earth hanging in the black, beautiful and fragile. Glance. Worth fighting for, worth dying for if it came to that. Glance. He thought about the woman's plea one more time. 3 words that changed everything. Glance. 3 words that turned a grieving rancher into something more. A warrior, a symbol, a hope for the hopeless. Glance. The ship's captain greeted them, a stern-faced woman named Commander Lopez. "Welcome aboard the frontier, Mr. Breliosman." Glance. "Morgan. We are ready to depart when you are." Glance. Jake took one last look at Earth. Then he turned to face the stars. Glance. "Let us go start a revolution." The frontier's engines hummed to life, and they slipped into faster-than-light travel, leaving Earth behind. Ahead lay the first target system, a mining colony where sovereignty brutality had pushed the population to the brink of rebellion. Glance. All they needed was someone to show them it could be done. Jake settled into his quarters, exhaustion finally catching up. Glance. Tomorrow they would arrive. Tomorrow the real work began. Glance. But tonight he let himself rest. Let himself believe that a simple rancher from Arizona might actually help free a galaxy. Glance. Lisa's voice echoed in his memory one final time. "Help us survive." Glance. He had. And now he would help them do more than survive. Glance. He would help them live free or die trying. Because that, Jake had learned, was what being human meant. Glance. Standing up when standing up seemed impossible. Fighting when fighting seemed futile. Glance. The sovereignty had picked the wrong species to threaten, and Jake Morgan was about to teach them that lesson personally. One world at a time. Glance. The woman's plea had changed his fate forever. Now he would use that fate to change the galaxy. Lance. The ship jumped through the stars, carrying hope to the hopeless and defiance to the defeated. And at its heart, a rancher who just wanted to help, now leading a revolution he never asked for but would see through to the bitter end. Lance. The frontier dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler I-442 system. Lance. The mining colony designated as Outpost 7 hung in orbit around a barren planet, its surface stripped bare by centuries of sovereignty extraction. Peter pulled up tactical displays showing their approach vector. Lance. The station houses 3,000 workers, he explained. All of them indentured servants working off debts that can never be paid. Lance. Security forces number around 200, all sovereignty regulars. But intelligence suggests the guards are as unhappy as the miners. Lance. Jake studied the station's structure. It was massive, a collection of interconnected habitats and processing facilities that sprawled across orbital space. Lance. Mining ships came and went like insects around a hive, carrying precious metals to feed the Sovereignty's war machine. What is the plan? He asked. Lance. Carl brought up a personnel file. Station administrator is named Kell. Lance. Former military, true believer in the sovereignty cause. He runs this place like a prison camp. Lance. Executions for minor infractions, rationed food, 12-hour work shifts. The miners hate him, but they are too broken to resist. Until they see proof that resistance works, Commander Lopez added. She had become surprisingly enthusiastic about the mission. Lance. We broadcast your story, show footage of you fighting Vex, share testimony about Earth's successful defense, give them something to believe in. Then what? They riot, the guards crack down, people die. How does that help? Vex spoke up from his position near the navigation console. Lance. The massive alien had taken to wearing human military fatigues, though they barely fit his frame. The guards are not loyal. Lance. They are afraid. Show them that fear can be overcome, and many will turn. Lance. I know these soldiers. They would rather join a successful rebellion than die enforcing a failing empire. Lance. That is a lot of assumptions, Jake pointed out. War is assumptions, Vex replied. Lance. The question is whether you have the courage to act on them. Jake almost smiled. Weeks ago, this being had tried to kill him. Lance. Now they were debating strategy like old friends. War made strange allies. Lance. We need someone on the inside, Jake decided. Someone to spread the word, organize the workers, identify which guards might flip. Lance. We cannot just broadcast and hope. I can infiltrate, Vex offered. Lance. I am still sovereignty military. They will assume I am there to inspect security protocols. Lance. They will check your credentials, and when those do not match, you will be arrested, Peter objected. Not if I have the right codes. Vex pulled up a file on his personal device. Lance. Before we left Earth, I accessed sovereignty communication networks. I acquired valid authorization codes for inspector-level personnel. They will work for 72 hours before the system flags them as potentially compromised. Where did you get those? Lopez demanded. Lance. I was a decorated officer before my demotion. I still have friends in the intelligence division. Lance. Friends who also question the sovereignty's direction. Vex met her gaze steadily. Lance. The Empire is fracturing, Commander. Not all cracks are visible yet, but they are there. Jake, made his decision. Lance. Vex goes in first. 2 days to make contact with the miners and identify sympathetic guards. Lance. Then we broadcast my story across all station frequencies. When the workers rise up, we need the guards to stand down or switch sides. Lance. And if they do not? Carl asked. Then we board the station and help them change their minds. Jake turned to Lopez. Lance. Can the frontier fight if needed? We have weapons, but we are designed for speed and evasion, not prolonged combat. If sovereignty reinforcements arrive, we will need to run. Understood, Lance. So we move fast. Vex infiltrates, we broadcast, the station rises up. Lance. 72 hours from start to finish. Lance. Anyone have better ideas? No one did. The plan was risky, possibly suicidal, but it was a plan. Lance. Vex prepared to deploy in a small shuttle, using his false credentials to request docking clearance. The rest of them watched tensely as the shuttle approached Outpost 7. Lance. Shuttlecraft Epsilon. 7. Transmit your authorization codes. The station's traffic control demanded. Lance. Vex sent the codes. Seconds ticked by. Lance. Jake held his breath. If this failed now, before they even started, the entire mission was over. Lance. Codes verified. You are cleared for docking Bay 17. Lance. Welcome to Outpost 7, Inspector. Vex glanced back at the Frontier's transmission before shutting down the connection. Lance. His expression was determined. 72 hours. Lance. Be ready. The shuttle docked and Vex disappeared into the station. Lance. The Frontier retreated to the system's outer edge, lurking near a debris field where sensors had difficulty maintaining clear readings. Now came the hardest part. Waiting. Plans. Peter spent the time preparing the broadcast package, footage of the tower fight, interviews with Helen Foster, tactical analysis of Earth's successful defense. He wove it together with narration, explaining who Jake was and what his actions had inspired. It is propaganda, Peter admitted. Lance, but propaganda in service of truth. The sovereignty uses lies and fear to control populations. Lance. We use the truth and hope. Will it work? Jake asked. Lance. Ask me in 72 hours. The first day passed without incident. Vex maintained communications blackout to avoid detection. Lance. Jake spent the time drilling with the Frontier security team, learning to use energy weapons and zero-gravity combat techniques. If they had to board the station, he needed to be ready. Lance. Commander Lopez joined him in the training bay after one particularly brutal session. You are improving, Lance. But Jake, you understand what we are asking of you, right? Not just on this mission, but overall. Lance. We are making you the face of a rebellion. Every world we visit, you will need to inspire strangers to risk their lives. Lance. That is a heavy burden. Heavier than watching your daughter die and not being able to do anything about it? Jake countered. Lance. At least this burden comes with the possibility of actually making a difference. Fair enough. Just make sure you survive to see that difference. Lance. Dead martyrs inspire for a moment. Living legends inspire for generations. Lance. The second day brought the first communication from Vex. A brief coded message. Soil fertile. Plants, seeds planted. Begin watering cycle on schedule. Lance. Translation. The miners were receptive, the guards were uncertain, and the broadcast should proceed as planned. Peter began final preparations. Lance. The signal would blanket the entire station, impossible to block without shutting down all communication systems. It would loop for 6 hours, giving everyone on Outpost 7 time to see it multiple times. Glance. After that, either the station would rise up or the mission would fail. Jake watched the feed one more time before transmission. Glance. Seeing himself on screen felt surreal. The battered rancher fighting an alien warrior twice his size. Pence. The desperate climb up the tower. The sacrifice and courage that had given Earth time to prepare. Glance. Peter had edited it masterfully, turning raw footage into inspiration. Think it will work? Jake asked Carl. Glance. I think people respond to authentic courage. And you, my friend, have that in abundance. Glance. Whether it is enough remains to be seen. The third day arrived. Glance. 72 hours since Vex had infiltrated. Time to broadcast. Glance. Do it, Jake ordered. Peter activated the transmission. Glance. Across Outpost 7, every screen suddenly showed the same image. Jake Morgan standing alone against an empire. His voice, recorded earlier, spoke clearly. Glance. My name is Jake Morgan. I am from Earth. Glance. 3 weeks ago, I helped some strangers who needed help. The sovereignty came to my world to silence them, to prevent their message from spreading. Glance. But I did not let them. I fought for 90 seconds, and those 90 seconds saved my world. Glance. Now Earth stands ready to fight, armed with knowledge and united in defiance. The footage showed his battle with Vex in brutal detail. Glance. Every hit, every moment of desperate courage. I am not a soldier. Glance. I am not trained for war. I am just a man who believes that helping others matters. Glance. That standing up to bullies matters. That even against impossible odds, resistance matters. Glance. The sovereignty wants you to believe they are invincible. They are not. Glance. They bleed. They fail. Glance. They can be beaten. More footage. Earth's successful defense. Peter's testimony about the intelligence that made it possible. Interviews with soldiers who had fought in orbit. The sovereignty conquered 800 worlds by making each one believe they were alone. That no one else had ever successfully resisted. Glance. But that is a lie. Earth resisted. Glance. We fight. And we will continue fighting until every being in this galaxy lives free, or until we all die trying. Glance. That is what it means to be human. That is what it should mean to be free. Glance. Jake's image looked directly at the camera. I am coming to your worlds, to your stations, to every place the sovereignty holds power. Glance. I am coming to tell you that you are not alone, that resistance is possible. Glance. That one person standing up can change everything. All it takes is courage and 90 seconds. Glance. Are you ready to take your 90 seconds? The broadcast looped, playing again and again. On the frontier, they monitored station communications, watching the reaction spread. Glance. First came confusion, then disbelief. Glance. Then something else. Hope. Miners began gathering in communal areas, watching the broadcast together. Glance. Guards shifted nervously, uncertain how to respond. Administrator Kell ordered the communication system shut down, but by then it was too late. Glance. The message had spread. The seed had taken root. Glance. Vex's voice came through on a secure channel. It is happening. Glance. The workers are organizing. Some guards have already switched sides. Glance. But Kell has called for reinforcements. You have maybe 4 hours before sovereignty ships arrive, Lance. Can you hold until then? Jake asked. We will have to, Lance. The station is rising. I cannot stop it now, even if I wanted to. Lance. Lopez brought the frontier in closer, weapons charged and shields raised. If we are doing this, we commit fully. No half measures. Lance. Outpost 7 erupted into chaos, visible even from space. Lights flickered as power systems were sabotaged. Lance. Entire sections sealed themselves off, denying Kell access to critical systems. The miners, 3,000 strong, had finally found their courage. Lance. But Kell was not finished. He ordered his loyal guards to fire on the workers. Lance. Open the airlocks. Kill the rebellion before it could spread. Lance. Dozens died in the first minutes of his crackdown, sucked into space or shot down in corridors. We have to board now, Jake insisted. Lance. People are dying. If we board, we are committed, Lopez warned. No retreat, no surrender, Lance. We take the station or we die trying. Jake thought of Lisa, of her final sacrifice. Then we take the station, Lance. Move in. The frontier surged forward, closing the distance to Outpost 7 at full burn, Lance. Sovereignty ships were already en route. Maybe 3 hours away. They had to secure the station before those reinforcements arrived. Lance. The ship docked at Bay 12, boarding ramps extending. Jake led the first team in, energy rifle ready. Lance. The corridor beyond was a battlefield. Bodies floating in zero gravity, blood globules drifting through the air, the acrid smell of burning metal and flesh. Lance. A group of miners saw him and froze. Then one recognized him from the broadcast. Lance. That is him. That is Jake Morgan. Word spread like wildfire. Lance. The human from the broadcast was here, actually here, fighting alongside them. Morale surged. Lance. Miners who had been cowering now pushed forward with improvised weapons. Guards who had been uncertain now openly joined the rebellion. Lance. But Kell had fortified the command center with his most loyal troops. Taking it would require a frontal assault against entrenched Glance. Jake studied the tactical map Peter had pulled up. There was no good approach, just varying degrees of suicidal. Lance. I will lead the assault, he said. That is exactly what Kell wants, Peter objected. Lance. Kill you, kill the inspiration, break the rebellion. Maybe. Or maybe seeing me risk everything will inspire others to do the same. Lance. This works. Or it does not. Time to find out. Lance. Jake checked his weapon and moved toward the command center, a group of miners and sympathetic guards falling in behind him. The approach corridor was a killing field, designed specifically to prevent boarding actions. Lance. Narrow passage, limited cover, overlapping fields of fire. Kell had set up auto turrets and positioned his best shooters. Lance. Jake and his team would be cut to pieces. Unless they changed the game. Lance. Jake noticed the environmental controls on the wall. Can we vent this section? A miner named Danny, who had been working maintenance for 10 years, understood immediately. Lance. Yes, but it will kill everyone in the corridor, including us. Not if we are in suits. Do we have enough? They scrounged 15 suits from emergency lockers. Lance. 15 people against Kell's 40 defenders. Terrible odds made slightly less terrible. Lance. They suited up and Danny accessed the environmental controls. On your mark. Jake took a breath, said a silent prayer to whoever might be listening, and nodded. Lance, do it. The corridor vented. Lance. Atmosphere screamed out into space, carrying everything not secured. The auto turrets bolted to the walls survived. Lance. But Kel's shooters, caught by surprise, were pulled from their positions, tumbling into the void. 40 defenders reduced to a dozen in seconds. Lance. Jake and his team pushed forward in zero gravity, using magnetic boots to maintain traction. The remaining turrets tracked them, firing in calculated bursts. Lance. 2 miners died before they could take cover. Another lost a leg to a direct hit. Lance. But they kept moving. Jake reached the first turret and slapped a magnetic explosive on its base. Lance. The charge detonated, and the weapon went silent. Danny took out another. Lance. One by one, they neutralized the defenses. The command center doors loomed ahead, sealed and armored. Lance. Behind them, Kel and his loyalists waited. Jake could imagine the administrator's rage, his disbelief that miners and a human rancher had penetrated this far. Lance. Vex appeared from a side corridor, suited up and carrying what looked like a portable battering ram. Thought you might need this. Together they positioned the device against the door. Lance. It charged with a high-pitched whine, then released a pulse that buckled the armor plating. A second pulse shattered it entirely. Lance. The door fell inward, and Jake led the charge through. Kel stood at the command console, a plasma pistol in each hand. Lance. He was smaller than Jake expected, barely 5 feet tall. His species evolved for high-gravity worlds, but his eyes burned with fanatical conviction. Lance. You dare! Kel hissed, his translator giving his voice a metallic quality. You dare bring rebellion to my station, Lance. I will make an example of you that the entire galaxy will remember. He fired. Lance. Jake dove left, the plasma bolt singing past his helmet. Vex returned fire, forcing Kel behind cover. Lance. The remaining loyalists engaged, and the command center became a whirlwind of combat. Lance. Jake flanked right, using the console banks for cover. He spotted Kel repositioning, aiming at Danny. Lance. Jake did not think, just reacted. He threw himself into the line of fire, taking the plasma bolt square in the chest. Lance. His suit's armor held, barely. The impact sent him spinning, ribs screaming in protest from the earlier damage. Lance? But Danny lived, and that was what mattered. Vex used the distraction to close the distance. Lance. He grabbed Kel with one massive hand, lifting the administrator off his feet. Surrender. Lance. You have lost. Kel laughed, the sound tinged with madness. Lost? Lance. I have already transmitted our location to the fleet. They will be here in 2 hours. You will all die. Maybe, Vex agreed. Lance. But we will die free. Can you say the same? He released Kel, who collapsed to the deck, defeated but alive. Lance. The last loyalists threw down their weapons. The command center was theirs. Lance. Lopez's voice crackled over the communications. Jake, sovereignty ships are accelerating. Lance. They will be here in 90 minutes, not 2 hours. We need to leave now. Lance. Jake looked around the command center. Miners crowded the doorway, watching him with expressions of awe and hope. Lance. They had won, but the victory was fragile, temporary. If they fled now, the sovereignty would return in force and punish everyone who participated. No, Jake said firmly. We hold the station. That is suicide, Lopez argued. Lance, their fleet will reduce this place to debris. Maybe, but if we run, these people die anyway. Lance, at least this way they die fighting. And maybe, just maybe, we can hold long enough for reinforcements. Lance, what reinforcements? Earth is 300 light-years away. Lance, Jake smiled, though no one could see it through his helmet. Not Earth, them, Lance. He activated the station's long-range communications, broadcasting on every frequency. His message was simple and direct. Lance, this is Jake Morgan. We have liberated Outpost 7. Lance, the sovereignty is coming to destroy us and everyone who dared to resist. If you are out there, if you are listening, if you have ever wanted to stand against the Empire but thought you were alone, now is the time. Come to Outpost 7. Help us hold the line. Lance, show the galaxy that the sovereignty can be stopped. Silence answered him. Once, Jake had gambled everything on strangers caring enough to help. It was the same gamble he had made when he helped Lisa and her companions. Lance, the same choice. Risk everything, or live with the certainty of defeat. Minutes ticked by. Lance, the sovereignty fleet grew closer. Lopez prepared the frontier for combat, knowing their small ship could not possibly win but determined to try anyway. Lance. Then the sensors lit up, one ship dropping out of faster than light. Lance. Then 5, then 20. Lance. Then hundreds. Ships from a dozen species all responding to Jake's call. Lance. Merchant vessels fitted with weapons, retired warships pulled from mothball fleets. Lance. Civilian craft crewed by volunteers who had seen the broadcast and decided enough was enough. An ancient freighter captain hailed them. Lance. Outpost 7. This is the merchant ship Defiant. We saw your broadcast. Lance. We are here to help. More voices joined the channel. Lance. Captains introducing themselves, pledging support, taking up defensive positions around the station. Jake felt tears in his eyes, overwhelmed by the response. The Sovereignty fleet arrived to find not a defenseless mining station, but an armada of rebels waiting for them. The Empire's forces outnumbered the Defenders 3-1, but the Defenders had something the Sovereignty lacked. They were fighting for something they believed in. Lance. The battle raged for 6 hours. Ships died on both sides, blazing briefly before going dark. Lance. But the Defenders held. Every time the Sovereignty pressed an advantage, another group of reinforcements arrived, drawn by the battle and Jake's continuing broadcasts. Lance. He narrated the fight in real time, his voice carrying across multiple systems. They told us we were alone. Lance. They told us resistance was futile. They lied. Lance. Look at us now. Dozens of species, hundreds of ships, all standing together. Lance. This is what the galaxy can be when we stop letting fear control us. Administrator Kell, imprisoned but watching from a holding cell, saw his life's work crumbling. Lance. The Sovereignty fleet he had called for reinforcements was being pushed back by a ragtag collection of merchants and miners. It should have been impossible. Lance. But Jake Morgan specialized in the impossible. When the Sovereignty finally retreated, leaving their dead behind, a cheer went up across the combined fleet. They had won. Against all odds, against an empire that had crushed 800 worlds, they had won. Lance. Jake sat in the command center, exhausted beyond measure. Peter approached him with the data pad. Lance, the broadcasts from this battle have already reached 47 systems. Uprisings are being reported on 15 worlds. Lance, Jake, you did it. You started the revolution. Lance, we started it, Jake corrected. Everyone who came here, everyone who fought. This is not about one person. It is about all of us choosing to stand up. Lance, Vex joined them, his armor scorched from battle. The sovereignty will not forgive this. They will send everything they have. Lance, let them, Jake replied. Every day they spend fighting us is a day they are not conquering new worlds. Lance, every ship they lose here is one less to threaten Earth. We make them bleed for every meter of space. Lance, Commander Lopez pulled up a star map. Red markers showed sovereignty territory. Lance, but now, scattered throughout that red-yellow markers were appearing. Uprisings. Lance, rebellions. Acts of defiance spreading like fire through dry grass. Lance, what now? She asked. Jake stood, his body protesting every movement. Lance, now we visit the next system. And the next. Lance, we keep broadcasting, keep fighting, keep showing the galaxy that the sovereignty can be beaten. We find every world ready to rebel, and we give them what they need, hope and proof that they are not alone. Lance, that could take years, Carl pointed out. Then it takes years. Lance, Lisa died buying Earth 90 seconds. The least I can do is spend however long it takes making sure her sacrifice meant something. He walked to the viewport, looking out at the assembled fleet. Ships from species he had never heard of, all united by a common cause. Lance, all because he had chosen to help 3 strangers, and a woman had asked him to survive. Help us survive, she had said. Lance, and changed his fate forever. But Jake realized now that fate was not something that happened to you, Lance. It was something you chose. Every decision, every action, every moment where you could walk away or stand your ground. Lance, Lisa had chosen to sacrifice herself. Jake had chosen to help. Lance, Vex had chosen to switch sides. The miners had chosen to rise up. Lance, the fleet captains had chosen to answer the call. All of it was choice, Lance. And every choice rippled outward, touching lives, changing destinies, reshaping the galaxy. The sovereignty had ruled for centuries through fear and overwhelming force. Lance, but they had never faced something like this. A human rancher who specialized in impossible victories and refused to accept that some battles could not be won. Jake Morgan had wanted peace. He had wanted to live out his days on his ranch, alone with his grief. Instead, he got war, revolution, and a galaxy looking to him for leadership. Lance, but standing there, watching the fleet that had come to fight because of his words, Jake realized he would not change any of it. Lisa's plea had given him purpose. Lance, the fight had given him family. This ragtag collection of rebels and dreamers had become his people. Lance, and together they were going to tear down an empire. Lance, set course for the next system, he ordered. We have got a revolution to spread. The Frontier's engines engaged, and the fleet fell into formation around them. They jumped to faster than light, carrying hope to the hopeless and defiance to the defeated. Somewhere behind them, Earth continued building its defenses. Lance. Somewhere ahead, worlds waited to be freed. And at the center of it all, a rancher who had helped 3 strangers when he could have walked away. Lance. A simple act of kindness that had sparked a fire that would consume an empire. The woman had asked him to survive, and he had. Lance. Now he would do more. He would help an entire galaxy survive. Lance. Help them fight. Help them win. Lance. Because that was what being human meant. Standing up when others would kneel. Lance. Fighting when others would surrender. Hoping when hope seemed lost. Lance. Jake Morgan had changed the rancher's fate forever when he decided to help. Now he would change the galaxy's fate, one world at a time, one impossible victory after another. Lance. The sovereignty would learn what humanity had always known, that the most dangerous thing in the universe was not the strongest warrior or the biggest fleet. It was someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. And Jake Morgan, rancher and revolutionary, was exactly that kind of dangerous.